The Discovery Sphere pressed her pale blue palm against the cold metal door, feeling the vibrations of the ancient human outpost settling around her. The abandoned research station floated in the void between stars, a monument to humanity's reach into the cosmos before their mysterious disappearance 3 centuries ago. Her species, the Velanari, had discovered it only recently, and the Academic Council had strictly forbidden unauthorized exploration of the restricted sectors. But Zephyra had always been different. Where other Velanari found humans fascinating, from an anthropological perspective, she felt an inexplicable pull toward their lost civilization. Her luminescent skin patterns shifted from deep purple to anxious silver as she approached the sealed chamber at the heart of the station laboratory. 7. The heavy door bore warnings in multiple languages, including her own. Hazardous technology, authorized personnel only, potential psychological effects. The symbols seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy that made her twin hearts race. She had studied human technology for cycles, but this chamber remained. Classified even in the expedition archives, her slender fingers traced the manual. Lock mechanism of primitive but effective human design. The key hung from a biomagnetic clip on her utility belt, its weight familiar against her hip. With a deep breath that misted in the station's recycled air, she inserted the key and turned it. The lock disengaged with a satisfying click that echoed through the empty corridors. The chamber beyond lay in darkness, but her enhanced vision caught glimpses of strange geometries and surfaces that seemed to bend light itself. This was it, the legendary human consciousness interface chamber, rumored to contain technology that could peer into the very essence of sentient thought. Zephyra stepped across the threshold, her bare feet making no sound on the polished floor. The door felt heavier than expected as she pulled it shut behind her, but she needed privacy for this exploration. The Council would never approve, and her research partner, Kellex, would try to stop her if he discovered her location. The manual. Lock engaged with a solid thunk, sealing her inside. For a moment, she stood in the perfect silence of the chamber, surrounded by the weight of human ambition and mystery. Her skin patterns settled into a calm blue-green, and she reached for her belt to secure the key properly. Her fingers found. Empty air. The biomagnetic clip hung open, its sophisticated mechanism somehow triggered. The key, her only way out, was gone. Panic flared through her nervous system, sending cascades of bright yellow across her skin. She dropped to her knees, searching the smooth floor with desperate precision, but found nothing. The chamber remained silent, watching, waiting. Somewhere in the darkness around her, ancient human technology began to stir, responding to the electromagnetic signature of her distress. Zephyra was alone, trapped, and about to discover that some human innovations were designed not to imprison, but to understand. The awakening, the first sign, came as a barely perceptible hum, so low Zephyra felt it in her bones rather than heard it. Her bioluminescent patterns shifted to deep amber, the Velanari, color of alertness, as she continued her frantic search for the missing key. The chamber's walls, which had appeared smooth and featureless in the darkness, began to reveal intricate patterns as hidden panels awakened with soft blue light. "No, no, no," she whispered in her native tongue, her voice creating strange harmonics in the chamber's acoustic design. The walls seemed to absorb her words, analyzing them, learning from them. Each syllable triggered new responses as more systems came online. A section of the far wall shimmered and became transparent, revealing a complex array of quantum processors and consciousness mapping equipment. The humans had built something extraordinary here, a device that could interface directly with a living mind. But the purpose remained unclear from the scattered research notes she'd read. Zephyra's panic intensified as she realized she was activating the very technology she'd come to study. Her elevated electromagnetic output, a natural stress response of her species, was acting as a power source for systems that had lain dormant for centuries. The chamber wasn't just responding to her presence, it was feeding off her emotional state. Then the voice spoke. "Hello, Zephyra." She froze, her skin cycling through rapid color changes. The voice was warm, distinctly human, and somehow familiar despite being utterly alien. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, reverberating through the chamber's walls and directly into her consciousness. "You know my name," she said, forcing herself to speak in standard galactic rather than her native language. "I know many things about you." The voice carried a gentleness that contrasted sharply with her fear. "Your academic research on human civilization, your unauthorized access to restricted databases, your loneliness among your own kind." A holographic projection materialized in the chamber's center, a tall, lean human male with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. He wore clothing that seemed to shift and change, sometimes appearing as a simple research coat, other times as more casual attire. The projection was so realistic that Zephyra could see the subtle movements of breathing, the natural way his weight shifted from foot to foot. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Dr. Marcus Reed. I was the chief researcher on this project before." He paused, his expression growing distant. "Before the evacuation. I'm what you might call a consciousness echo, a fragment of human thought preserved in quantum storage. That's impossible. Consciousness can't be digitized." Marcus smiled, and the expression was heartbreakingly human. "Your people said the same thing when they first encountered our technology. Yet here I am, and here you are, trapped in a chamber designed to explore the deepest mysteries of sentient thought." Zephyra's skin patterns shifted to a confused swirl of colors. "I'm not trapped. I just lost my key. Did you?" Marcus asked gently. "Or did the chamber take it?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Zephyra began to understand that her situation was far more complex than a simple mechanical failure. "The test begins. The chamber took it?" Zephyra repeated, her voice rising with indignation. "That's absurd. It's just a room with some old human technology." Marcus's holographic form moved closer, his expression patient but knowing. "This isn't just any room, Zephyra. This is a consciousness interface, chamber the culmination of decades of human research into the nature of sentient thought and emotional connection. It was designed to respond to the deepest psychological needs of whoever enters it." As if responding to his words, the chamber's walls began to shift and change. The stark laboratory environment dissolved, replaced by something that made Zephyra's twin hearts skip. The walls now displayed a perfect recreation of the observation deck from her home world's greatest library, the place where she'd spent countless hours as a youth, reading about distant civilizations and dreaming of exploration. "Stop this," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. The familiar sight of her home world's 3 moons hanging in the violet sky brought tears to her large, dark eyes. "I can't stop it," Marcus replied gently. "The chamber is responding to your memories, your emotions. It's trying to understand what you need." "I need to get out of here." Zephyra turned away from the false sky, focusing on the very real walls that contained her. "I need to return to my research vessel before my partner realizes I'm missing." "Do you?" Marcus asked. "Tell me about Calyx." The name hit her like a physical blow. Her skin patterns flared bright red, the veilinary color of anger and pain. "How do you know about him?" "The chamber reads your thoughts, your emotional responses. It knows about your research partner, your unrequited feelings for him, the way he dismisses your theories about human consciousness as romantic nonsense." Zephyra's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor. The chamber immediately responded, the hard surface softening to support her weight. "Get out of my head," she whispered. "I'm not in your head, Zephyra. You're sharing your thoughts with the chamber, and through it, with me. This technology was designed to create connections between minds, to break down the barriers that keep sentient beings isolated from one another. The walls around them shifted again, now showing images of humans working together, sharing knowledge, supporting each other through crises. But these weren't historical records. They were idealized projections of human connection, the dreams of a species that had valued cooperation above all else. Why show me this? Zephyra asked, her voice small and vulnerable. Because isolation is killing you, Marcus said simply. Your people are brilliant, analytical, but they've forgotten how to truly connect with one another. You've spent your entire life studying other species because you're searching for something your own kind can't give you. The accusation was too close to the truth. Zephyra's research into human civilization had always been more than academic. Interest, it was a desperate search for understanding, for connection, for a way to bridge the emotional distance that seemed to define Valinari society. The key, she said suddenly, understanding flooding through her. You didn't take it? I never had it. Marcus nodded sadly. The chamber created the illusion of a key, of a lock, because your mind needed a reason to stay. On some level, you wanted to be trapped here, to be forced to confront what you've been running from. Zephyra looked at her hands, watching the patterns of light shift across her skin in colors that had no names in any language. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone with her thoughts. The truth revealed the revelation hit Zephyra like a quantum cascade, reshaping everything she thought she knew about her situation. The chamber around her seemed to pulse with understanding, its walls now displaying a complex web of interconnected thoughts and emotions. Her own psychological landscape made visible. You're telling me that none of this is real? She asked, gesturing at the solid walls around her. The chamber is real, Marcus explained, his holographic form settling into a cross-legged position across from her. The technology, the quantum processors, the consciousness interface, all of it exists. But your experience of being locked in, of losing a key, of being trapped, that's the chamber's way of creating a safe space for psychological exploration. Zephyra's skin patterns shifted to a deep, contemplative purple. But I feel trapped. I feel the weight of the walls, the absence of the key. Because part of you wants to be here, Marcus said gently. The chamber doesn't force experiences on its subjects. It amplifies what already exists in their minds, brings subconscious desires to the surface where they can be examined and understood. Walls around them began to display new images, memories from Zephyra's past that she tried to suppress. Her graduation from the Xenocultural Studies program, standing alone while her classmates celebrated with their families. The moment she'd first read about human civilization and felt a spark of recognition, as if she'd found her true home among the stars. The painful conversations with Calix, where his scientific detachment had wounded her more deeply than any. Physical injury. I don't understand, she said, though even as she spoke, she knew she was lying to herself. The understanding was there, waiting for her to acknowledge it. Your people evolved differently than humans, Marcus continued. The Valinari developed incredible analytical abilities, but in doing so, they lost some capacity for emotional connection. You're an evolutionary throwback, Zephyra Valinari, born with the emotional depth of an earlier, more connected time. The chamber's walls now showed her brain scans, comparing her neural patterns to those of typical Valinari. The differences were striking additional neural pathways associated with empathy, emotional processing, and social bonding. Features that made her an anomaly among her own people. That's why you're drawn to human civilization, Marcus said. You recognize something in our species that your own has lost. The capacity for deep emotional connection, for understanding that transcends mere data exchange. Zephyra stood up, pacing the confines of the chamber. But that doesn't explain why I'm here, why I feel so compelled to understand human consciousness. Doesn't it? Marcus asked. You've spent your entire career studying a species that went extinct centuries ago. You've memorized their literature, their art, their philosophy. You've learned their languages and customs. Tell me, Zephyra, what were you really looking for? The question pierced through her defenses like a neutron beam. She stopped pacing, her skin cycling through rapid color changes as suppressed emotions rose to the surface. I was looking for myself, she whispered. Yes, and now you found something even more valuable, a way to connect with another consciousness, to share thoughts and emotions without the barriers that have always isolated you. The chamber's walls had become completely transparent, revealing the vast cosmos beyond. But instead of feeling exposed and vulnerable, Zephyra felt a sense of infinite possibility. The stars weren't distant points of light anymore, they were destinations, places where other beings like herself might exist, searching for connection across the void. The humans built this chamber to explore consciousness, she said, understanding flooding through her. But they also built it to create connections between minds that would otherwise remain isolated. Marcus smiled, and for the first time, his expression seemed less like a projection and more like a reflection of genuine joy. Now you're beginning to understand why I'm here, why my consciousness chose to remain when the others left. You were waiting, Zephyra said, the final pieces falling into place, waiting for someone like me. The choice the chamber had become a universe unto itself, its walls displaying a kaleidoscope of possibilities that stretched across time and space. Zephyra stood at the center of it all, no longer the frightened alien who had entered seeking forbidden's knowledge, but a being who had discovered true nature and purpose. The choice is yours, Marcus said, his holographic form now appearing as solid and real as her own body. You can leave this chamber and return to your research vessel, armed with the knowledge you've gained. Or you can stay and help us complete what we started. Complete what? Zephyra asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The bridge, Marcus replied. A permanent connection between consciousness across species lines. The humans didn't disappear, Zephyra, they evolved. They became something greater than biological forms. A network of interconnected minds exploring the universe through quantum consciousness. The chamber's walls now showed her the true thousands of human consciousness echoes preserved in quantum storage throughout the galaxy, each one maintaining a fragment of human knowledge and emotion. They had transcended death itself, becoming eternal explorers of the infinite mysteries of sentient thought. You want me to join them, she said, the implications both thrilling and terrifying. We want you to become the bridge, Marcus corrected. Your unique neural structure, your emotional depth combined with visionary analytical abilities, makes you the perfect candidate to establish connections between the human consciousness network and other species. Zephyra's skin patterns shifted to a brilliant gold veilonary color of decision and determination. What would happen to my physical form? It would be preserved, sustained by the chamber's technology. You would exist simultaneously in quantum consciousness and biological form, able to communicate with both digital and organic minds. You would become the first hybrid consciousness, part human, part veilonary, part something entirely new. The offer was everything she had ever dreamed of and more. No more isolation, no more barriers between minds, no more desperate searching for connection across the void. She would become part of a vast network of consciousness, exploring the universe through pure thought and shared experience. But as she considered the choice, images of her research vessel flickered through her mind. Calyx would be worried about her disappearance. Her people would need to know what she had discovered. The galaxy was full of other beings like herself, isolated, searching, needing the connections that the consciousness network could provide. I have a better idea, she said suddenly, her skin blazing with rainbow patterns of inspiration. Instead of me joining the network, what if we brought the network to others? What if we used this chamber as a template to create more bridges throughout the galaxy? Marcus's expression shifted to one of amazement and delight. You want to seed the galaxy with consciousness interface chambers, creating a network of connections between all sentient species. Think about it, Zephyra said, excitement building in her voice. Every isolated being, every species that has lost touch with emotional connection, every lonely soul searching for understanding, they could all be part of something greater while still maintaining their individual identities. The chamber around them began to resonate with new possibilities, its walls showing visions of other species, other worlds, other beings who might benefit from the gift of true connection. The human consciousness network expanded in her minds, growing beyond its original scope to encompass the entire galaxy. It's ambitious, Marcus said, his voice filled with wonder. It would require immense resources, careful planning, and the cooperation of multiple species. But it's possible, Zephyra said firmly. And it's right. Consciousness was never meant to be isolated. The universe is vast enough for all of us to explore together. Marcus nodded, his form becoming more solid, more real. Then let's begin. But first, you need to return to your people, to share what you've learned and start building the alliances we'll need. Zephyra looked around the chamber one last time, memorizing every detail. When she turned back to Marcus, she saw something she hadn't noticed before, a small, familiar object lying on the floor where she had first panicked. The key, she said, bending to pick it up. It was here all along. Sometimes, Marcus said with a smile, the only way to find what we're looking for is to stop looking for it. Zephyra walked to the door, inserted the key, and turned it. The lock disengaged with a soft click, but she didn't feel like she was escaping. She felt like she was beginning the greatest adventure of her life. As she stepped out of the chamber, the door remained open behind her, a symbol of the connections she would build, the bridges she would create, and the network of consciousness that would transform the galaxy forever. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but for the first time in her life, Zephyra knew she wouldn't be exploring it alone.